The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. This is Antonio Carrion, and while we're waiting for others to sign in, let's go over some rudimentary housekeeping. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down. However, you can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar using the questions section in the toolbar of your GoToWebinar. We will answer the questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this presentation and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees as well as those who registered but were not able to attend. We're constantly sharing important updates on technology and software tools, best practices, and tips and tricks on our social media channels. So we encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where we have hundreds of instructional videos. Please take a moment at the end of the presentation to answer our poll or request additional information. Let's move to the agenda slide. With that said, good day, everyone. And we still have people jumping on, but let's begin. This is Antonio Carrion, and I am the Vice President of Marketing at SWK Technologies. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Cybersecurity for Manufacturing and Distribution Companies. First of all of us at SWK hope you and your families, friends, and co-workers are well during the COVID-19 pandemic. We understand the many challenges we are all facing at SWK. We had decided early on to let everyone work from home and to limit travel, so we're all healthy and we're operating at 100% capacity. The majority of our customers are also doing well. And I'll discuss the state of our manufacturing and distribution customers a little bit later. So we'd like to thank them also. They've been an important part of our ecosystem as we go through a very challenging 2020. Our business has remained strong, and in fact, we're hiring, and we're very fortunate given all the obstacles we're facing this year. If your business is struggling during these times or you feel you need additional support, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We not only have technical and software solutions, but we can provide with financing. If you're an existing customer and you need payment deferrals, let us know, talk to us. We have free consulting from our strategic technologies advisory team that can help you prioritize your investment and map them out over time. We've provided these customers services to our customers and are happy to extend them to you further. So let's move on to the next slide. As I mentioned, I'm Antonio Carrion, VP of Marketing here at SWK Technologies. I've been in the IT field for well over 20 years. And I'll walk you through the beginning of this webcast where we talk about the industry research and what's going on with manufacturing and distribution. Then I'm going to hand it off to Ralph Castro. He is our lead consultant in our IT and managed secure cloud practice. Ralph also has over 20 years of experience in the IT field, and he'll delve into the cybersecurity challenges and solutions. Next slide, please. Want to go through some information about SWK quickly. Here is our corporate org chart. As you can see, SWK is a fully owned subsidiary of SilverSun Technologies, which is publicly traded on the NASDAQ market under the ticker SSNT. SilverSun has other entities, including Secure Cloud Services, Inc., which focuses on application hosting, and Critical Cyber Defense Corp., which provides high-end cybersecurity services by way of a fully staffed security operations center, or smart SOC, as we like to call it. Next slide, please. And here's a quick overview of SWK. We are a national company with about 170 employees coast to coast across the US. We are an award-winning and top-rated managed service provider, as well as a partner to software and services companies. And we support publishers such as Sage, Acumatica, Avalara, and ADP, as well as other independent software vendors. And we have strong software automation solutions and a top-notch ERP integration, customization, and support team. Before we go into the current state of manufacturing and distribution, I want to address a couple of questions we received prior to the webcast. And the first one was, will CMMC be discussed during this seminar? CMMC, for those of you who are not aware, is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, much as we have CMMI, Capability Maturity Model for Software Development. We also have certification for cybersecurity. And the second question is, we work for the Navy as a manufacturer of onboard electrical switching devices. Will you address the new cybersecurity prototypical they will be auditing to? The answer for both questions is that this webcast is focused on small and mid-market manufacturing and distribution industries. And our objective is to provide a high-level view of the current state of these industries, recent cybersecurity occurrences, then take a slightly deeper dive into the most common multi-level and full-service cybersecurity solutions. So we will not delve into CMMC or government, military, subcontracting subject matter. Next slide, please. So I want to discuss the state of the manufacturing and distribution industries, and I'm going to start with what we're seeing across our customer base, because that may very well likely relate to what you're seeing. We have a very proactive customer account management program where we routinely reach out to our customers. When the pandemic began, we further expanded on this program, and we involved senior managers and executives to stay in touch with our customers. We even launched a business survival guide, and we created that specifically in support of our customers to help you get through this difficult time. It talks about telecommuting, remote workforce, so cybersecurity, a lot of things that really have been in play this year. So we're pleased to say that the vast majority of our customers are doing well. And the most common activity that we've seen is companies supplementing their existing IT and software instead of making major investments. And this makes sense because of the economic uncertainty that we've been facing. So we've been providing a lot of upgrades and add-ons and some software development and customizations, as well as IT help desk and other support activities to help customers with what they already have. There are other customers, and I'm not going to say many, whose businesses have slowed down and have strong cash on hand, and they have decided to use their downtime to upgrade their entire systems. Again, not a lot of those, but if you have downtime and you have the cash flow, it does kind of make sense. And then we have a few customers who are struggling, and we've worked with them to keep them going. We've provided, deferred payments. We've worked with them on the maintenance contract. We've helped finding financing for solutions, and as I mentioned earlier, complementary consulting services to help them prioritize. And it's important, I think, at this time to be efficient and disciplined in how you proceed. So you make the right investments, you keep what you have going, but also you're very financially, very managed, control in how you're spending. So next slide, please. We also regularly assess the macroeconomics of the manufacturing and distribution industries. In 2019, when associations were still hosting live events, I attended several, including the NJMEP. And the biggest challenge that I heard in manufacturing came from the trade war, the global trade war, and the lack of raw materials. But even then, companies were adopting new practices, and they were moving to more of a regional model. So this article here from CNBC, which is just about a week old, kind of supports that well into this year and echoes what I heard last year. Companies moving supply chains from a global to a regional model. And as you can see in this article, companies were shifting away from globalization toward a more localized approach when it came to their supply chain. And I think the pandemic kind of accelerated this strategy, but it was already in play. And that's consistent with what we've heard with our customers and potentially why they've done well during 2020. I also think it's important to mention that consumer spending had a couple of bad months, but economically has rebounded. We attribute that to the stimulus checks, to the extended unemployment benefits, and to the rebound in jobs. And I think that's especially important because ultimately the finished products from manufacturing and that are distributed end up in the hands of the consumers. So this is part of that ecosystem, and it has accelerated over the last month ago. So hopefully a good trajectory there. In total, we have found that the macroeconomic data that we've seen matches what we're seeing among our customers, even though the wider data includes larger companies and we primarily focus on small and mid-sized companies. It seems that manufacturing and distribution companies of all sizes are facing similar challenges in raw materials, supply chain, of course, health concerns, and technologies, and need to make the best possible technology decisions during this time. So next slide, please. I want to touch on this because it's what everybody's talking about. You've all heard about the new normal. This is mostly centered around the need for employees to work from home since the pandemic began. Clearly, not all manufacturing and distribution employees can work remotely. However, you may have some personnel that can, like accounting and finance, sales and marketing, and possibly customer service. It's important to note that working from home is not just about video conference and the technology tools. There's a cultural component to managing remote workers. And I don't think a lot of companies really thought about that going into this. We had at SWK a lot of remote employees already, so we were kind of used to it. But things, I don't think, always progress as you envision them just because of the technologies and solutions that you place. You really have to think about the culture and the management of that culture. A lot of companies have gone headfirst into this new normal without really thinking through the ramifications, and we're going to discuss some of them. Next slide, please. So here's some of the risks about working remotely. Obviously, cyber threats is among the top concerns, because a lot of times your cybersecurity measures may not extend themselves to those home computers or devices. Add to that the fact that hackers are aware that so many people are working remotely these days, and they are aggressively attacking them. Office networks and cybersecurities are often not enough, and to be clear, your firewalls may not extend out to those home devices. And another point that we run across a lot of our customers have network and systems administrators. To be good at cybersecurity, that's a different skill set. I know some of those administrators work toward them, but it is a practice in itself. So, you know, adding to the risk of working from home is you have people sharing computers and they're sharing Wi-Fi networks. They're not always secured. They have family members, especially younger family members. We all have kids and relatives who love gaming. That may add to that cyber risk. Additionally, you have to know whether your insurance covers your work from home devices. So, you know, please check your policy there because you may not be covered. Let's go to the next slide. And let's look at some advantages and challenges of having employees work remotely. Productivity was a big concern, and I think that's why a lot of companies for many years did not want employees working from home. They really did not know how to manage them. They felt more comfortable just having them in the same office space. I think in 2020, a lot of people found out that this is not necessarily the case. Those employees can be just as productive, if not more productive. You just have to have the right tools and technologies in place and the right, as I have said, culture and management to them. And I think a lot of companies are now finding out that this is a viable model, if not for all, some employees. It also allows you to extend your talent pool. If you could allow workers to work remotely, you can have people from anywhere in the country working instead of limiting that pool to just your region or your state. So it's really a matter of distributed workforce management. Cost reduction. A lot of companies are asking themselves, how much office space do they actually need? Because it's amongst their biggest cost. So, even in a manufacturing and distribution environment, you have to ask yourself the question, can you minimize or optimize office space by allowing employees to work from home? Certainly something to think about. Flexible hours is important when you have employees across the US in different time zones. And given the questions around school openings now, where some children are staying home, do those employees have the ability to work from home? So those flexible hours may be important to them if they have kids at home, if they maybe have to work the later hours. So something to discuss and possibly keep those employees and keep them being productive and yet supporting them during what may also be a difficult time for parents. Less collaboration, face-to-face contact, I think, is a main reason people want to be in an office. And some people feel this is necessary. Working from home, you may also lose that sense of social network. Again, managing remote employees is about developing a certain type of culture. Less control as we delve into cybersecurity. Public networks make your security less secure or more risky. You need to maintain cybersecurity best practices when you have a distributed or remote workforce. And then there's the blurred work-life balance. Listen, remote working is the way of the future. It will be the new normal, at least to some extent. At SWK, we call it work-life integration, especially at the management level. And it's actually been the new normal for a lot of us for some time. And it's something that you can add to the arsenal of your business tools to extend your workplace employee and talent pool. But if you have remote workers, you have to recognize signs of burnout, that some people struggle with managing home and work life, that you as manager may need to work with them. Let's go to the next slide, please. And let's start going to cybersecurity a little bit. This is just a quick view of cyber attacks in manufacturing and distribution. I want to show you a couple of these slides because they're not necessarily from SWK, they're from external resources. And what we can see here is an increase of cyber threats in the manufacturing industry, replacing some of the older industries that were being attacked more. And this one statistic, manufacturing industry paid out 62% of total ransomware demands to cyber criminals in 2019. So what about the other 38%? Well, most likely they just decided to rebuild their systems, to re-access their data and applications, and we know that you can do that. But we also know that the fastest you'll probably do that is 2 days. So in total, those 38% that chose not to pay were down and potentially out of business for about a week or so, or processing operations manually, which will really wear on you if you're used to all of the software automation that you have. So either pay one way or pay the other. Best to be prepared for those cyber attacks. Let's move on to the next slide. And I just want to take a quick look at some of the very recent cyber attacks, and this is over the last month or two in the manufacturing and distribution industries. Garmin, well-known, huge company, most well-known for the GPS products, but they were smart enough to also go into the fitness device market. Scary to think that a company of that size could be a victim of ransomware attacks, and to think that they reportedly paid that ransom, and again, reportedly in the millions. Let's be honest, that would put a lot of small and medium-sized business companies out of business. Hopefully they had some type of cybersecurity insurance, but I think best to have a more robust cybersecurity practice. The ventilator manufacturer I thought was interesting. As we have said, hackers they've been going to town since the pandemic started. And according to this article, Boyce was targeted because of the critical nature of their product during the pandemic. and their absolute need to have their technology and systems up and running in order to meet the demands of the market during the pandemic. Remember, hackers have nothing else to do but sit around and figure out ways to get into your systems. And this just shows you that they know what type of industries to target. And the F&B manufacturer is also extremely important, because if you notice that this report is anonymous, this company remained anonymous. And a lot of companies, especially small and medium-sized businesses, do not report the hacks or the ransomware. They don't want people to know. They know their customers and their supply chain may lose their confidence in them if they get hacked, not to mention the fact that they may not be able to survive a serious hack. So whatever statistics you're seeing, you can imagine that a lot more companies are getting hacked and you're just not hearing about them. So having said that, I want to hand it over to my coworker, Ralph Castro, who's going to talk through some of the cybersecurity threats that are out there and some of the solutions that can help you. Ralph?
Thank you, Antonio, and good afternoon, everyone. This is Ralph Castro, and I'm the lead consultant from Managed Services. And it's a pleasure to have this opportunity to speak to everyone here. And what I'd like to start off with is one major point. The information that will be shared with you, take it as a understanding of what those challenges are out there, and speaking to a variety of C-level individuals within various ecosystems and industries, we have come across what we feel to be the current cadence and understanding as to what is needed, or what most C-level folks feel to be their very top cybersecurity concerns, and how they hope to address them, and what they look for in possible solutions to address them, to help them continue their business, especially, as Antonio astutely put in this new unknown, new normal, so to speak. So the first question, the first slide here, is about how to cybersecure your company. And the first step in doing so is assessing your security posture. Now, what does that even mean? To do a self-assessment on your current network and security environment in terms of your current inventory. Do you have everything in place to run your most critical business functions? What are the customer-facing applications or services that need to be on an always-on environment? And what are your capabilities for delivering those services should, in the event of a pandemic, or and forcing you to reduce your staff? And what are the tools and software and applications that are available so that employees can do their job remotely, so they can do what they do best, and that's service the customers. And in accessing your security and networking posture, you have to determine, well, how do your workers work remotely? Is it through a VPN or an RDP, which was considered to be the gold standard of accessing work files? But nowadays, with the increases in cyber threats, is that really secure enough? And then determine what investments are necessary to address the new dynamic changes in the market. Do you need a new firewall? Do you have the proper productivity software in order to maintain that level of productivity? Do you have postures in place to do logging and monitoring? Do you have a current relationship with a potential MSP cloud-hosted partner that can provide you with the infrastructure necessary to facilitate that work? And if you don't, then you can just make a plan, because these are things that don't need to happen all at one time. They can be done in staggered stages. But the first step, as I mentioned moments ago, is saying, well, let's take a look at the mirror right now, and let's ask ourselves about our current network and security posture. Next slide, please. One way is to address the multi-level cybersecurity. Do you have the multiple layers of cybersecurity to address specific threats, whether it be phishing attempts or ransomware? An unfortunate and yet a fun fact: since the outbreak of COVID, you've seen a whopping 63% of cyber threats, specifically in ransomware, targeting small to medium-sized businesses. That's unprecedented. And of those, 83% have still remain to be unresolved, which means that these companies are unfortunately left with trying to figure out, well, how do we pay these things out? It makes us question a disaster recovery and business continuity posture. It makes us question, do we have the proper training in place so that our frontline employees are prepared and armed with the necessary intelligence and techniques to identify these potential threats before they hinder the business? Do we have advanced endpoint protection, which is critical for work from home employees, so that this way, when they're working from home, are they following specific protocols to access the work files? Are those endpoint protections? Do they have the most fundamental firewalls in place so that the work that they're doing doesn't get compromised? And as I just mentioned moments ago, what's critical about a cybersecurity footprint is an essential and comprehensive disaster recovery and business continuity plan. So these are things that CISOs, CIOs, VPs of IT have expressed to be the core competencies that comprises a comprehensive cybersecurity posture. Next slide, please. One of them being multi-factor authentication, which as you know, which would allow an individual to access their data through a password and verification via cellular. This way, it grants them access. So by having, in this example, by having that encryption method, you're allowing that connection to those resources while being completely transparent to the user. Next slide, please. One of the key areas of concern, regardless of industry, but specifically in manufacturing, has been end user training. Now, what does that mean? And this is one of two areas that I am very passionate about, because the first and foremost, the weakest link in the chain, unfortunately, starts with the end users. So the way to prevent that is through having a comprehensive security awareness training, because over 90% of successful data breaches start with a phishing attack, something that looks unbelievably normal or legitimate, and it ends up upon first click dropping a significant payload that spreads like wildfire. And as a result of that, you can have, what does it tell us? You can have the most comprehensive cybersecurity footprint, but the end user will always remain to be that central and weakest link. The way to, as I mentioned, the way to go about that is to, as part of your security posture, have that awareness training in there. Have it so that the employees can feel empowered, that they represent that first line of defense of having the knowledge, identifying what seems to be an illegitimate attack. So this way, when it comes to conducting their day-to-day tasks, they feel confident that they are following the policies and procedures of your cybersecurity posture. Next slide, please. Now, this is an area that I really want to dive a little bit deep about, and this is the second passionate topic of mine, and that's dark web. And what makes this area so unique is that it's rather ambiguous. Almost like how someone says, "I want to go to the cloud." Well, that's rather abstract, right? So the dark web represents that, has that abstract sense as well. And so the most important thing to do, step one, is to identify what the dark web is and what the dark web isn't. Okay, so the dark web monitoring is a major component of your cybersecurity posture, which is the ability to detect cyber threats, to make sure that things, for example, like an expired mailbox is removed from the network, because cyber criminals, especially in the dark web and the deep web, which we'll get into momentarily, utilize basic techniques just like that to find little areas to exploit. And they'll use botnets, and they'll use chat rooms, blogs, websites. They'll use anything to just get inside your network. Okay, so let's start going back momentarily on dark web. So what it is and what it isn't. Okay, and there's a difference. You have the deep web versus the dark web. Okay, now the deep web and the dark web are sometimes used interchangeably, but they are not the same. The deep web refers to anything on the internet that has not been indexed and therefore accessible via search engines like Google and Yahoo and Bing. The deep web content includes anything behind what's known as a paywall or requires sign-in credentials. It also includes like any content that the owners have blocked, like web crawlers from indexing. You know, for example, medical records, fee-based content, membership websites, and confidential corporate pages are just a few of those examples of what makes up the deep web. And so here's an interesting fact that estimates place that the size of the deep web it was roughly between 96 to 99% of the internet. Only a tiny portion of the internet is accessible through a standard web browser like Google Chrome, Bing, and so on, generally known as the clear web. Okay, so that the dark web is a subset of the deep web that's intentionally hidden, that requires a specific browser, which is not to go too deep in this, but these are some of the things that again, to not digress, this is an area of concern that leaders within the manufacturing space have expressed concern as to how to get this, how can we make monitoring the dark web and the deep web part of our security posture. And the first step of doing that, you got to know what it is and what it isn't. And once you know that, wow, that for example, there's estimates only about that 5% of the actual what we deem to be the clear internet is actually stuff that gets collated properly, indexed properly, cataloged properly. The rest is stuff that has not been cataloged. So not to, the reason why I'm saying this, not to create this element of fear. It's more of an awareness. And again, sharing with you these touch points expressed by C-level leaders within manufacturing that have expressed this level of concern about, wow, we need to make dark web, deep web monitoring as part of our comprehensive cybersecurity posture, which includes the end user training. So that this way, the weakest link becomes the strongest link. Another part of that cybersecurity posture is vulnerability testing. Having experts, certified experts come in and like red blood cells and white blood cells. White blood cells protect the body, from defense. Red blood cells, when infected, they attack. So kind of like a red team, white team instance, what they do, what those experts do is they search for that level of vulnerability. Let's go in and ping an IP address, 1,000 times. See what happens. Let's just go ahead and crash the server. So this is another brute force technique and or offering, okay, that a global partner would have and offer as part of their repertoire to help you build a cybersecurity posture. Next slide, please. Advanced endpoint protection. The threat of a cyber attack is not limited, obviously, to an end user. Endpoints can be part of that as well. Servers. If you have a BYOD policy, as everyone here knows, bring your own device. So when it comes to establishing a cybersecurity footprint within your organization, one must incorporate endpoint protection. How our servers, our endpoints, every single device within our network, in and out of our network, is it secure? Is it, does it cover, personnel that's on the field? Does it cover, personnel that work from home? So another element that needs to be part of that cybersecurity posture. Next slide, please. Having a unified security event manager, in the most simplest of terms, having a dashboard. Every single C-level individual you have spoken to expresses the need to have complete and utter visibility of that cybersecurity posture, looking at the traffic that goes north, south, east, west, meaning when upstream, downstream, and also what's being shared between devices. So this way, almost like a security team deployed outside a building. They want to monitor to make sure that all the behaviors that are happening inside are copacetic with what is expected. So this way, nothing can go in that's going to disrupt the environment and cause trouble. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, minutes ago, about the core of that cybersecurity posture is having a comprehensive backup and continuity policy. And so, as every single expert on this webinar understands, having a comprehensive backup and continuity plan ensures that always-on environment. So this way, you're in the event of a power outage, or in the event of in this case, the real-time example that we're facing right now with COVID and forcing organizations to adopt a work-from-home strategy. Do you have the continuity and backup and recovery in place to address the most dynamic or odd instances of accidental deletion, of an endpoint being stolen with no asset tagging on it, or or a complete and separate database got wiped out because of some sort of a failure within the cybersecurity posture. To be able to activate and spin up those backups immediately is a key component of having a comprehensive cybersecurity posture. Next slide, please. And one of the things that you want to make sure when it comes to working with a partner that is offering cybersecurity services is to ensure that they have a SOC, which stands for a Security Operations Center. And a Security Operations Center is HIPAA compliant, PCI compliant, PII compliance. And one of the things that separates us, for example, is that we have something called Cerebro, which is a 24/7, 365 full monitoring of the environment by certified cybersecurity experts. And which, we have experts that look at hacker footprints, that look at, heuristics based on behaviors that are found on the web, looking at that upstream, downstream, east-west traffic that comes within your network. And we offer that component here, especially for SMBs, so that this way they're not left vulnerable, through a cybersecurity intrusion. We're able to offer, solutions like that, regardless of the size of the organization, which we could certainly talk about at another time, and we'll just keep the focus on manufacturing at the moment. Next slide, please. And one of the things another way that you can empower or build upon a cybersecurity posture for organization is to have secure cloud application hosting, which means that you can migrate any application onto the cloud and have that layer of cybersecurity, which provides that 24/7, 365 monitoring, and you can share that experience regardless of any device from any time, anywhere. So that's another way of securing your organization by having that ability, which is again one of the asks of the leaders who which you have spoken to in the past, as one of the key components, the ability to migrate applications onto a secure cloud environment that provides a nice overlay to having a cybersecurity posture. Next slide, please. And so in this particular slide, there are 4 key tenets, and that's having a cybersecurity posture that incorporates multi-level options, encryption, multi-factor authentication, et cetera. Having a security operating center, having that flexibility to say, hey, look, whether it be now or later, we want to have the ability of migrating an application over to the cloud so that our employees, regardless of location and device, they can access it securely from anytime, anywhere. Business continuity. In summary, again, being able to have that footprint that says, hey, we're able to, regardless of any issue that comes up, be able to continue servicing our clients as a manufacturing company without skipping a beat. We have the protocols in place, we have the disaster recovery and the backups on the cloud in place, or multi steps of backups in place to ensure that we can recover from any point or any time, in our backups. And in summary, another thing expressed by the industry leaders you've spoken to is partnering up with a global cloud MSP that can offer remotely managed or co-managed IT infrastructure, taking away the day-to-day mundane tasks, or even becoming those skill sets that are extremely difficult to find. And Antonio mentioned that a couple of slides back that having those skill sets can be a difficult thing, and partnering up and having that strategic relationship with a partner that has those certified resources available is yet another tool within your tool belt in establishing a comprehensive cybersecurity posture. And within that partnership, exploring the opportunities to either support an on-premise infrastructure, migrating over to the cloud, or even doing a hybrid cloud infrastructure, or even hyper-converged. If there's a need to completely move the infrastructure into the box, then ensuring that partnership allows for that kind of access to expertise. And then infrastructure as a service, where the small manufacturing company is going to be evolving into its next stage. Well, let that be the focus. What we're hearing from the manufacturing community is, hey, we're scaling so fast, but we may not have the infrastructure or even the time in place because they have that wonderful problem of trying to field orders, from their clients. Well, guess what? A solution to that is, well, you can do infrastructure as a service. Don't worry about having, servers on premise. We can actually, a global partner can actually assume that responsibility, provide the visibility to a dashboard, provide that cybersecurity footprint, and provide the different options, whether it be migrating an application to the cloud so that you can adopt to a work from home environment, or even a hybrid, or as depending on the current state of affairs, who knows what could happen. But to have that flexibility, and these C-level folks also express the need to have someone that can help them adapt. A relationship with a global MSP provider ensures that adaptability. Do we need, as a manufacturing company, go co-managed or full cloud? We're evolving to it. We're growing out of our steams here. We don't have time for these resources. Can we find someone that has the intel and the expertise enough to help us, establish infrastructure as a cloud service? Absolutely, not a problem at all. Next slide, please. So I just want to pretty much sum it up, and thank you very much for giving me an opportunity, giving Antonio and I an opportunity to really express, what we have found to be unique challenges, within the manufacturing community, what we have collated as touch points and areas of concern and opportunity by C-level folks in manufacturing. And we'd like to take this opportunity to yield the floor to the participants in this webinar. This way, if you'd like to hear more about us, or here's a little poll that we'd like to give you guys, and open the floor to any questions. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Antonio.
Thank you, Ralph. That's a ton of valuable information. And of course, this webinar is recorded and we will be made available to everyone. And as Ralph said, we want to give our audience the opportunity to ask questions. So if you haven't already, please submit your questions in the questions field of your GoToWebinar toolbar. While you're typing your questions, we're launching a quick poll. Please take a minute to answer one question. And I know one of the questions in that poll is if you're interested in a network vulnerability test, which if you're unsure is certainly worthwhile. It's not a very expensive thing. Or in general, if you just want to learn more about our cybersecurity or managed services. So we do have some questions, and first one is, how exactly does the security awareness training for employees work? And I can start answering this question because we have done this training at SWK, and it begins with an instructional online video that educates everyone, and then it has very non-intrusive quizzes associated with those instructions. They're more meant to keep you, thinking about what you should be doing to increase cybersecurity risks. And then what's good is you also receive regular emails about the latest type of threats to you. Very important is also that the program will send phishing type emails to employees, and it will test their awareness, and it will check to see if anyone clicks on hyperlinks or opens attachments that in the real world would be a threat. So it's not just a webinar or a video or a quiz, it's an entire program, and it's a real world program. I know Ralph discussed the security awareness training a little bit. Ralph, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, pretty much that's a summary, a very good addition to what I had expressed earlier about the individual training, end user training for security awareness. Absolutely, those are one of the fundamental tools that that for part of a cybersecurity posture it's critically important. It starts with the end user. I cannot even count on my fingers a number of textbooks that I've read where it always starts with an end user, where and these cyber attacks that are, more recently are getting more and more and more comprehensive. And so being armed with that sort of intel, empowering the employee with that kind of knowledge is, you cannot assign a dollar value to. You can assign a dollar value to an attack, that's for sure. But one needs to ask themselves, like, what is the impact to the business by not having, as part of their cybersecurity posture, an employee training program? So I'll leave it there. Sure.
Yeah, and one of the points you brought up earlier, Ralph, was about empowering the employees. Yeah, I mean, they're learning, right? And they're becoming more valuable to themselves, to their department, and to the organization. So very good point. Second question, if we don't feel confident assessing our own security posture, is there anything you can do to help us assess it? So maybe Ralph, you can speak on that a little bit.
Certainly, the assessment that we do here is very comprehensive. We can certainly assist in understanding primarily the story behind your organization and what you feel to be those challenges in terms of assessing your own security posture. That would be a non-committal call, discussion that we would be honored to have with you. But yeah, one of the things that we do as a first step is to understand the current environment. Actually, withdrawn. What we do is three things. One, we want to understand the end state, right? Like where do you envision your current security posture to be? And then we work our way to the current state and then the past state to identify those stopgaps. And then, with our expertise, we would, walk you down that journey and providing an assessment, But yeah, though that's something that we offer here, and we'd be honored to have again an open and honest, non-committal chat with you on understanding what you envision to be a successful security posture.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I agree. It begins with an assessment. You may have things in place that are working and maybe things that are not, or things that can be reinforced. One other question, what if we have employees working at our facility and at home? How does that affect our network security? Ralph, can you field that question?
I'm assuming they're talking about the end user training again. If so, then I will keep this part of it short. So the empowerment goes on both ends, right? So take it from this perspective. Employees that are working both on premise and those working remote would, in my humble opinion, have that quote unquote security onboarding where it's like, hey, here's something that that HR and leadership is going to share, with you guys, regardless of geographical location, because we need you in order to ensure that the assets that you need to be successful, because our success is what? People, right? And then people need access to data to do their jobs effectively. So, here are things that we can do collectively, again, regardless of geographical location, to ensure that everyone is on point and working together to ensure that nothing is going to get in their way of doing their jobs, not only productively, but also happily, right? Because a happy employee is a good employee, So, and forgive me for digressing, but yeah, I would say that having that employee program, so employee training, whether it be remote or even on-prem, is essential, because every individual, regardless of geographical location, represents that link, that possible entry point for a cyber criminal to want to penetrate, because they just don't care. I don't need to be, they just don't care. And so employees, that when you empower them, are going to care, because they're going to say, wait a second, this is my second home. This is my second family, So absolutely, have that awareness training, offer that with them, make them feel empowered, have that as part of their onboarding, or even quarterly review. Absolutely. Give that power to them, so that this way they get excited about ensuring that everyone's happy. When everyone's happy, the customers are happy. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, excellent, Ralph. And of course, if they're looking to, again, build on their cybersecurity, we discussed multi-factor authentication and encryption. We discussed the advanced endpoint protection. We even discussed, moving some of the applications and data to the cloud into a secure environment as well. So I think there's a lot that can be done there to protect both the on-premises and remote workers. So that's all the questions that I'm seeing. And again, thank you, Ralph, and the SWK marketing team for putting this webinar together. And thank you, everyone, for attending our webinar. Our role is to help you endure this crisis that we're facing today, especially amid all of the cyber attacks that we're seeing, and to position you for success when this crisis is over. At the very least, we hope we can provide you with some educational materials that provide food for thought, and that may help you make wise decisions moving forward. If you have any further questions or concerns or need immediate help, you have on the screen right now my direct email, Ralph's direct email, or the general email. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us, or visit our website, swktech.com, and download our free business survival guide, which has multiple pages of best practices and tools to help you work remotely or work on premise, cybersecurity, and a lot of other topics. Otherwise, we wish you good health, and we're here to help your business endure this year, grow, and position you for success moving forward into the future. We'll talk soon. Thank you very much.